Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, and I am pumped to have a fellow Canadian on the show. It's been a bit of a hot minute since we've had a Canadian on the show today. There were a couple weeks, couple months where it was just maple syrup all over the place, but you know what? It's we've had a pretty long break from Team Canada, but we are back, baby. Super pumped to have Graeme Moore on the show today, Head of Tokenization at the Polymesh Association, a non-for-profit dedicated to the growth of the Polymesh blockchain ecosystem. He is also the author of B is for Bitcoin, the first ever ABC book about Bitcoin. Prior to Polymesh, Graeme was the first employee at Polymath, the creative director at Spartan Race. Ooh, that's fun. Can't wait to get into that. And an associate at Canada's largest independent investment advisory firm. What a mouthful. Graeme, pumped to have you on the show, my friend. Welcome. Let's jump into it. How you doing today?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We're buzzing. It's a bit of a shitty day in Toronto. I know you're in New York. Didn't ask you what the weather's like yet, but I'll take New York over Toronto 100 times out of 100, man. You did the right thing getting out of here. It was a good play on the move.
Yeah, I mean, the hockey's not as good. There's only really one rink in Manhattan, but yeah, other than that, I'm a big fan of New York.
How's the hockey league down there? Probably some good finance guys buzzing around.
Yeah, there's a good amount actually. So I'm in a Monday night league. It actually starts next week. It'll be fun. We usually finish kind of like top 3 or 4 in the league. There's usually about 8 teams. So yeah, it's good. We got a good group of guys. I mean, my team's 3/4 Canadian or so I'm sure you got some good players.
I love it. Let's jump right into here. Before we get into the crypto stuff, Spartan Race. I've never done a Spartan Race, but you know, I like fitness, like working out, health, all that fun stuff. I mean, everyone does nowadays. It's so popular for good reason. How cool was that, working at Spartan Race? What did you do as creative director there?
It was a really fun experience. So it came about in a strange way. So I was just backpacking through Southeast Asia. I was there for a bit over 3 months and came back, didn't have a job. One of my dad's buddies had got the rights for Spartan Race in Canada and the UK. And
wow.
He said, hey, I sort of just realized, a few weeks before the Spartan Race summer season is starting, I don't have a second driver to drive this truck with the huge 30-foot trailer across Canada all summer. There was one guy who was willing to do it, but he wanted a second guy. I was like, I really don't want to do that. And he said, well, I also need a lot of help with marketing. And I said, okay, sure, I'll do it.
That's more up my alleyway.
If I have to do it. Yeah, but creative director, so I was managing social media with another girl there and, posting a lot of content, creating a lot of stories, really delving into the who and why behind all the Spartan Race athletes. That was a big piece of what we focused on. I drove a 3500 Chevy with the 4 tires in the back, towing a 30-foot trailer across Canada 7 times in 5 months. The races were sort of Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto, to Red Deer, Alberta, back to Toronto, back to Calgary, Alberta, and back. And so, yeah, it was a lot of driving, but a lot of fun. Very good summer.
And those drives were powered by Tim Hortons and Zins, I assume?
Not so much the Tims, and I don't think Zins were out yet. So there's a lot of peanuts at gas stations, and when they'd have them, a banana. Those were the best gas stations that had kind of one piece of fruit, so you could have something fresh. But yeah, it was a very interesting time.
I love it. Let's jump into the crypto stuff here. Polymath. Polymath is Toronto-based firm. Yeah.
Yeah, so Polymath is, and so that's where I started my first crypto job, if you want to call it that. I had gotten into the space end of 2014, really started getting obsessed with it 2015. And then I got my first crypto job at Polymath. So I was the first employee, the first real hire. There were 2 founders. They brought me on to help with all things marketing, and any time any kind of hole needed to be filled. There's always a ton of stuff to do at a startup, never any shortage of tasks that need to be done. So I joined September 2017, right as the sort of ICO bubble was ramping up, that crypto exciting period. And then I guess part of the journey of what happened is at Polymath, we were building tech for security tokens. And so we were really the first companies that built any kind of platform that enabled anyone to easily click buttons and create a security token. So what people could do before was click buttons and create a utility token using the ERC20 standard. What we did is we extended ERC20 into something we called ST20, which eventually morphed into an official ERC 1400 standard. And what it allowed them to do is create a token, but also implement things like transfer restrictions, implement things like whitelisting. So the creators of the asset would actually know who's holding my asset. I'm approving this person, but they can't send it to anyone I don't know. And doing things like 24-hour volume transfer restrictions. There are a whole bunch of weird things in securities laws where, Vitalik and friends had never thought of when they created Ethereum. They weren't thinking, how do we ensure people can create assets on Ethereum to comply with the SEC or the OSC in Ontario? And so we were the first company who started doing anything like that. And what happened over that time is we just kept running into issues with Ethereum, and we said, okay, let's stop trying to build a great protocol layer on top of Ethereum. Let's build a better blockchain. And that's how the idea of Polymesh was born. And so we started building Polymesh back then, and we launched Polymesh in 2021.
It seems like, we've had so many L1s on the show recently, but there was that sort of time frame where, the narrative was so popular. Just do an L2, roll up, roll this, roll that. Now everyone's sort of going back to like, fuck roll ups. If you really want to have, a sovereign chain and you really want to have transferability and scalability and throughput, like you just got to you got to do it yourself. You got to build an L1. Was that the same thing with you guys? Because you guys, to my knowledge, you guys were, building an institutional product, but it wasn't good enough on ETH. And then it was like, okay, if we're building an institutional product, we need an L1. Was that sort of how it went down?
Yeah, we just kept running into a lot of the same issues when we were talking to banks and talking to custodians and all those regulated players in the securities markets. We boiled it down to 5 main things: governance, identity, confidentiality, compliance, and settlement. And so for Polymesh, we thought, how can we solve these issues for banks? Governance is a big one. And a lot of people don't think about this until you tell them, which is, imagine you have a $100 million asset on Ethereum. And then there's a contentious fork like there was with the ETH Classic fork. Which chain has the token on it now? Well, both of them do. But which one contains the actual claim to the underlying assets? Do you write that in your offering docs and say, we will select the chain with the most hash power 1 millisecond after the chain split? Do you pause trading for a month and decide which chain has more staking power or which token is worth more, like ETH or ETH2? And so that's a huge problem for institutions, especially if you're thinking about putting not only $100 million, but $100 billion on chain. And so if you have that and then you tell your investors, hey, at some point, this weird thing might happen that's only applicable to blockchains, and you just have to stop trading, or you have to undergo some type of internal board meeting to decide which asset is the real asset, that's just a non-starter for them. So on Polymesh, there's always one canonical version of the chain. And so that technically is a little bit more centralizing. And so, the decentralization maximalists don't like that. But we're dealing with financial securities. We don't really care about the next dog token. We care about financial securities. We care about stocks, bonds, real estate derivatives. We care about these highly regulated assets and how to build a blockchain specifically for that. Identity is another piece where we kept talking to banks and they kept saying, if I trade an asset on Ethereum and it's in a regulated market and I spend $5 on gas fees, those $5 can go to North Korea. North Korea could mine that block. They could create that block. And so they are funding the North Korean regime. And so on Polymesh, all the node operators they have some kind of financial license. And so that could be a broker-dealer license. That could be an ATS license. It could be a bank. It could be a custodian.
You KYC, KYB them all, right?
Yeah. And so our head of product would not want me to say the term KYC. We do an identity check is what you would like me to say. But so we're not, KYC implies ongoing requirements. We don't do that. What we do is essentially say, this is a real person, they show their passport or whatever, and we say, this is a real person, this is the country they live in. You're not on an OFAC sanction list. Cool, you get to join the Polymesh blockchain. And so that's effectively how it works. Similar to, onboarding to either PayPal or Coinbase or wherever.
Yeah.
So a very, very similar process. So that's identity. The confidentiality piece is huge. JP Morgan doesn't want Goldman Sachs to see when they're putting a trade into the mempool for an asset. No bank wants that. No financial institution wants that at all, especially when they're trading constantly hundreds of billions of dollars. Their tiny 0.01% edge can lead to huge gains or huge losses for them. So working on confidentiality is a huge piece for us. Then compliance is a big one, where all the tech we were really building on Ethereum was really about compliance. It was, how can you allow actual regulated financial instruments on blockchains? And so for us, compliance is actually baked into the base layer, and asset creation is baked into the base layer. So on Ethereum, and I always talk about this, Vitalik, he didn't foresee how important the tokens specifically would be on Ethereum. If they did, they would have baked token creation and token management into the base layer of Ethereum. That's what we think. And so what ends up happening on Ethereum is everything is smart contracts. You have smart contract talking to smart contract, talking to smart contract, talking to smart contract. And it becomes redundant. Really it is. And it becomes really computationally expensive to do anything. And so on Polymesh, we said, well, tokens should just live on the base layer. The blockchain should understand what a token is. The blockchain should understand token management, adding attestations so that someone can hold an asset or they cannot hold an asset. And so that kind of stuff just made things a lot more efficient and a lot more scalable. And then finally, settlement is a big one for us. So Matt, if I find out your Ethereum address, I can send you anything I want anytime. You can't say no. That's not something that is very appetizing to banks.
Yeah, that's quite spooky.
Yeah, like if you saw when BlackRock announced the BUIDL fund, like everyone started sending BlackRock a ton of assets, and like they can dispose of them, or they can say they don't really hold them, but it's in their account. People can send money through Tornado Cash, and they can send money to you. And now, are you OFAC sanctioned? Maybe not. But the point is, there's a huge question mark. And so on Polymesh, settlement works a lot more similar to how it works in the traditional market, where all parties in a trade affirm settlement instructions, and then settlement takes place. Whereas on Ethereum, only the sender affirms settlement instructions and settlement takes place. And so, it was all about how do we build a blockchain specifically for financial securities and for the world's regulated entities that are dealing with these assets.
I love the 5 pillars. I forgot one of them: governance, confidentiality, compliance, settlement. What am I missing?
And identity.
Identity. I absolutely love that. You just teed me up for my next question and subject here. You just talked about the BUIDL with BlackRock, good old Larry, the GOAT. Imagine being as rich as Larry. Oh my God, that would be electric. I'd just be traveling the world, golfing at all the nicest tracks, like, it'd be a treat. One day, c'est la vie. Anyways, RWAs, blowing up right now. One of the big reasons why you're on the show, you guys tokenized a freaking church. That is absolutely incredible. I'm Catholic. I don't go to church anymore, but I grew up in a Catholic family. I went to church every Sunday for 18 years. If I had a hockey tournament in Michigan, Chicago, New York, Buffalo, didn't matter. I was waking up early on Sunday, driving friggin' 30 minutes with my parents and going to church and almost showing up like 5 minutes before a game, missing warmie kind of thing. So this hit a little closer to home. I thought this was really, really cool. Walk me through the whole process. I want the whole story. How did it happen? Did they contact you? Like, tie in the RE tokens. Give us the whole down low on tokenizing the Old Stone Church, I believe it's called, in Colorado.
Yeah, so Old Stone Church has been tokenized on the Polymesh blockchain, and Old Stone Church is, I believe, the oldest church in Fort Collins, in Colorado. And so the process really came about through our partner REtokens, and so that's really how a lot of the assets get tokenized on Polymesh. Is Polymesh, we don't tokenize things. What we do is we provide the blockchain and the infrastructure to make it easy for others to tokenize things. And so we're not involved in the church. We're not the broker dealer. We're not the transfer agent. We don't do any of that kind of stuff. We're the blockchain. Same thing as Ethereum is the blockchain for the BUIDL fund. Ethereum, Vitalik didn't necessarily talk to Larry Fink. We didn't necessarily talk to the church. And so for the church, they got in touch with REtokens or REtokens. Real estate tokens is the RE. And so the CEO there, Tyler Benson, he started talking to Blake Bush, who's the pastor at the church, and they started getting to discussing. And there's been a lot of great coverage on their backstory and how they started speaking. And I think there's a story in Forbes. There's a story in Crypto News already, although breaking news, I believe there's another story in Crypto News dropping quite soon as well with another reporter. And then there's a story in Cointelegraph. So there's a ton of cool stuff on the backstory. But the idea is Blake Bush, the pastor, they rent that church today. So they rent their space. And a number of other churches as well, or congregations, they also rent the space.
I didn't know that. Churches, really?
A lot of them do. And so that's why we think, and so that's why actually we think this is such an exciting thing that's going to spread throughout the country and maybe even throughout the world, where a church might be able to pretty easily crowdfund $2.5 million.
It's true.
So that's what they're looking for today. And let's say they can't crowdfund $2.5 million. There might be an investor who wants to actually invest in the real estate of the church and then see appreciation from the real estate value. Maybe there's land in there's this one church. You should look this up after. I was watching this crazy video on New York where there's this one church in Lower Manhattan where the amount of money it has in real estate is insane. And it's just because it had a piece of real estate, whatever, 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Yeah. It's just been sitting on it. And so There are a lot of churches, however, who don't have that, and they don't own the real estate that they actually use. And so what Blake Bush, what the pastor decided to do is, well, let's see if we can get $2.5 million investment. Let's buy the land, let's buy the church, and then let's actually own the place that we come every week, and that other places share with us as well.
I love that. I fucking love that.
We think it's a really cool idea that, if proven successful here, will definitely spread to the rest of the country and hopefully the rest of the world.
But Graeme, this type of news, it hit different. And again, obviously I'm a little biased because, and I don't go to church anymore, but I used to. But my bias aside, I mean, I'm on crypto news all the time. I work for the company, and to one of the best news sources in all of crypto. 90% of the stories are negative. Like there's never any positive shit. And it's not just because, yes, the negative news sells more, but like, when was the last time you saw some really positive news in crypto? And then secondarily to that, when was the last time you saw positive news in crypto that was also IRL, that also impacted like people in Web 2 and in real life? So when I read the story, I was like, this is friggin' incredible. Like, come on. This is the kind of stuff we need more of. But RWAs as a whole, this is obviously a super nice little niche that you guys perhaps have come across. Are there any other areas of RWA where you can see like an actual need come in? Because again, before the show, before 3 minutes ago, I didn't even know that about churches. I just thought, oh, church owns the land. It's the whole kit, cam, and caboodle. Like they got it all. I didn't know this. Are there any other sort of niche areas that are actually like ripe and ready to pop off in regards to RWAs?
Yeah, I mean the tokenized treasury aspect, the money market funds, is really taking the world by storm right now. And so, you mentioned BlackRock before. And then before we started recording, we were talking about hockey and playing in New York. So the guy who runs my hockey team is Robbie Mitchnick, who's the global head of digital assets at BlackRock. So we talk about this stuff all the time. And so so that's actually pretty funny. But so like the BlackRock Middle Fund is a great example. And so the way Robbie explains it and the way BlackRock usually explains it is, it's kind of interesting because they're taking Bitcoin and they're putting the institutional TradFi wrapper around it so that people can invest in it.
Exactly.
And then what they're also doing is they're taking the TradFi institutional product of T-bills and of a money market fund, and they're actually putting the crypto wrapper around it in the Middle Fund. So it's really weird. It's kind of like you'd think almost those are opposites and they don't make sense. It should be one way or it should be the other way. But it just shows that there are so many different participants in the world of capital markets that want different things and that desire different things and that can find a way to profit from different things, that so many of these products make sense. And so I think we're going to see more and more of these, quote, traditional assets get the crypto wrapper around it. At the same time, we're going to see these crypto assets get the traditional wrapper around it. And so it really just depends on the investor. But so those kind of T-bills on chain, those kind of money market things on chain are really exciting. Real estate for us has been probably the biggest that we've seen, the biggest uptake in. The example I absolutely love and I'm obsessed with is today, if I wanted to buy real estate, I could get 5 buddies together and we buy an apartment building. Or I lever up an insane amount that I buy an apartment building. So I get one asset. Or I can invest in a real estate investment trust where I get a bunch of different assets. But those are not necessarily all of the exact assets I want. There might be an apartment building here, an apartment building there, an apartment building there. What I want to be able to do and what I think I will be able to do in, let's call it 10 years, 20 years, hopefully 10 years, hopefully 5 years, hopefully next week, is I will be able to buy a small piece of every single apartment building above the 7th floor that overlooks Central Park south of 100th Street. Like that's what I think I will be able to do. And you can't do that today, and you can't do it today because nobody's going to create that structured product all in one thing, and the costs are too high to do it. Yeah. So with tokenization, the costs come down, the efficiency goes up, and you can start to see how these weird structured products can get created by someone like me. I'm not an investment banker, but I could just go buy, and I create a structured product in a vehicle, and I click a button, and I put a wrapper around it, and it's on chain. And so this kind of money Legos thing where people can start to create interesting structured products that wouldn't necessarily be an idea from an investment bank to create, or that are just cost prohibitive today. I think that's the most exciting long-term thing. So some other areas that are cool today that we're seeing, another real estate example, digitizing titles. So there's a company we work with called On-Chain Listings. They're working on digitizing titles in Florida. Carbon credits is a big one as well that we've seen. And so the interesting thing about carbon credits is it's a really new market. And so I think back in 2017, our first thing we got really excited about was, we're going to tokenize equity. We're going to take Apple stock off everyone's brokerage accounts and off the major exchanges in America, and we're going to tokenize it and put it on the blockchain. But nobody really cared about that because buying Apple stock works pretty well today. You click a button on your brokerage account and you get it. But with carbon credits, there's no existing established liquidity venue for any of these things. And so brand new markets that don't really have well-worn paths going from origination to liquidity for a secondary market, those are really exciting to us. And so that's why real estate makes sense. That's why putting this kind of crypto wrapper, enabling people that previously didn't have access to T-bills makes sense. And that's also why things like carbon credits make sense.
I love that. I think two of the overall themes, and that was a great rip, by the way, but two of the overall themes from that last rip is just like how crypto being money Legos, which allows you to take out the deficiencies, increase efficiencies. And also another main point of that is, and I love this, wrote this down, this is going to go in the personal notes too, creating new liquidity venues where it's like church, for example, great one, no liquidity. A lot of real estate, no liquidity. It's all tied up. It's all debt. It's all mortgage bullshit. Super, super cool. We've got to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to keep buzzing on everything Polymesh, REtokens related, you name it, we're going to touch it. Huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends of CryptoNews.com and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love Prime XBT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News pod. You can use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50 to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Graeme. I want to keep buzzing on REtokens for a little bit. And this is a bit of a weird one, but so many RWA-based companies, protocols, blockchains, you name it, popping off over the last year. And heck, it feels like every day there's a new RWA company coming out. Do you think that one token, sort of like the Bitcoin or the ETH or the, not Sol per se, but do you think that there will be an emergence, one single emergence of just one token running the show, one protocol owning a lot of the pie? Or do you think it's going to be like RWA for, everyone's doing RWA and DPIN, but like RWA for real estate, RWA for bonds, RWA for hockey cards, whatever the case may be. You think it's going to be like niche focused products, or you think it's going to be one single, maybe RE that takes all of real estate? Or there's going to be a church one? Is there going to be a building one, a home one? How do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, I think it's really tough to predict. I think if you had asked people that 5 years ago, they would have said everything will be on Ethereum. And if you ask people that 2 years ago, they'd say 3/4 will be on Ethereum and 1/4 will be on Solana. And if you ask people now, they'll say some amount of it will be on Polymesh. And so I think it will. I don't think it'll be a winner take all market. And one of the reasons is a lot of the banks that we've talked to, and they are largely who controls a lot of the flow of assets, is they don't want to be beholden to one specific technology. And they don't want to be a kingmaker, which was a really interesting comment we heard recently, where a bank doesn't want to select, the Polymesh blockchain and then say, we choose the Polymesh blockchain and we will only use the Polymesh blockchain. They don't want to really do something like that. So what they do is, they use Polymesh for one proof of concept, they'll use Ethereum for another proof of concept, They'll use Solana for another proof of concept. And then they'll have that tech stack that filters into the 3 blockchains or, the 10 protocols, whatever it is. So they can have some kind of diversity within their own tech stack, and they're not beholden to one specific technology. So that's what we've seen from a lot of the banks. We do have that focus recently, just by however the world works, by chance, on real estate recently, and on carbon credits, and on debt instruments. We've been working with a few companies on that, but we've also had music NFTs on Polymesh. So we're working with a company called Tokentracks, where the interesting thing that Tokentracks likes about Polymesh is because we have the assets at the base layer of the chain, you can enforce royalties with no ability for a platform to say no. And so that's been a huge issue recently, where there's been a few NFT products where they trade on OpenSea and the company says, we want to enforce a 10% royalty, but then OpenSea says, no, we're not going to do that. Or some other platform says, no, we're not going to do that. But on Polymesh, the creator of the asset and the manager of the asset can 100% confirm that they will always enforce royalties, because it's not a smart contract layer that's enforced by some other platform. It's the asset itself enforcing.
And so on the base layer.
If you trade it, the royalty gets enforced. It doesn't matter. And so that's one interesting thing we've been doing with token tracks. And so, yeah, do we become the music NFT with automatically enforced royalties blockchain? Maybe. Do we become the real estate blockchain? Do we become the everything blockchain? But Ethereum, does 20% of the volume still? I really don't know. And it's really hard to pick. And things move so quickly in this industry. I think it's just really hard because things move so fast. But my overall thought that I feel pretty comfortable saying is there will be a number of different winning blockchains and protocols.
I love that. Speaking of OpenSea, you see the OpenSea Wells notice today?
I did, yeah. I tweeted a photo of Kamala Harris cackling about it, asking if people want 4 more years of Wells notices.
What do you think is going to happen there? I mean, this has an effect to you. I mean, even though I'm Canadian, I guess realistically it does affect us too, because we're probably just going to copy whatever the Americans do. But I mean, yeah, it's going to be a spooky 4 year. I mean, I personally, if she gets in, I think what is it, November 10th, the election day?
I don't even know, right? So I'm Canadian. I can't vote.
Yeah, whatever. Well, let's say it's November. Let's say it's November. Let's say it's November 10th. I personally I might have some shorts, locks, and loaded. I don't know, but I think it's going to be spooky town if she gets in. What do you think?
It is the old thing where America sneezes and Canada catches a cold, right? So pretty much what happens to America happens to Canada. The thing about the election and political stuff is, it does seem like Democrats do not like crypto. No. I mean, that seems to be pretty apparent with the way Gary Gensler has acted, the way Elizabeth Warren has acted. Elizabeth Warren, a sitting senator, said she's creating an anti-crypto army.
I know.
That was truly baffling to me, where she thought that she has a better chance of being reelected by saying she does not like crypto. And so, I mean, what's more telling than that? Saying, I really do not like this thing and I will try to defeat it with an army. It's interesting that Harris is, kind of maybe taking a step back and saying she's going to reverse course. I've talked to a few policy people who are in the sort of Democrat camp who say, don't wait, our good policies are coming, just wait. But I mean, you had 4 years to not sue everybody in the entire space. You had 4 years to make some legitimate policy. You had 4 years to put through some reasonable regulatory decisions and maybe a few bills that actually protected people's ability to self-custody or to engage with these assets. But, I haven't really seen it. And so, for me, all the other politics aside, I don't really care. But yes, as a single issue voter, I don't know how you could support the current party based on how they're behaving. The other thing is, I don't know if this is a rumor, but supposedly if Harris wins, then Gensler gets Treasury Secretary. I don't know if that's real, but that's the rumor that a lot of people have been talking about. And that was the rumor that was spread for a pretty long time, where Gensler was so hard on crypto because he believed that would get him Treasury Secretary. That was what I had heard for the last even 7 years.
Is Treasury, and again, this is a stupid Canadian question here, but is Treasury Secretary higher than head of SEC?
Yeah, it's the best thing you can do if you're a finance. Gotcha. If you're a finance guy in America, that's the best thing you can do. And
you're the CFO of America,
kind of, right? And so that's the thing that every finance guy wants. You do your stint at Goldman Sachs, then you go work at the SEC, and then you become Treasury Secretary. That'd be the greatest thing ever. And so
then Goldman pays you $500K for a 30-minute little
Then you get the speaking fees after the appointment, and then you're good to go. Yeah. So, I mean, would I like to see a new SEC chairman? Yeah, of course. That would be great. And so so maybe almost voting Harris ensures that Gensler is gone from the SEC Treasury or SEC commissioner position, and he goes over to the Treasury. So maybe that'd even almost be a good thing. But my guess is probably not a good thing, and so. I mean, who knows? This is what
I don't get, Graeme. If you're a Dem, and if you're high up in Dem policy, there are 20 million single issue crypto voters. That's 5% of the population. You're getting 5% of the Gen Pop vote right there. How many of those? I don't know. I'm pulling numbers out of my ass, but let's say I assume most of us are more right leaning. But for everyone who's more in the center, who perhaps may have more left-leaning views, if they're single issue voters and they're just like, they'd rather vote Dem, but they're not, they're voting Repub because of crypto, it's like you could maybe gain a couple million votes. And again, I'm talking on my ass. I have no clue if this is true or not, but I feel like you're not going to lose that much. Like by you saying, hey, we're not even pro crypto, we're just not against it. What's the neg there? Is that like, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's tough, right? And we have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. We have no idea what kind of powerful interests are directing policy or influencing policy or putting their thumb on the scale. I mean, there's got to be someone somewhere saying this is the right move, and I don't know who's necessarily doing that, but clearly someone thinks that it's the right move. I think things will change at some point. I mean, they have to, but I think this has a lot of corollaries to when the U.S. government was trying to ban encryption, and I think this was in the 90s, where people get on the internet and the government says, no, we need to have the key to look at every single thing that's on the internet, because what if there are terrorists or whatever? And we see that kind of same exact thing happening right now in crypto, where it's, well, the terrorists are using crypto, and before the terrorists were using encryption. And so we won the encryption battle somewhat. Although maybe not in France with Durov being arrested. Although the interesting thing about the Durov thing getting arrested is because Telegram actually doesn't use encryption for a lot of messages. That's potentially the reason. And so Telegram is this massive honeypot of who knows what. And so maybe that's just what they want access to. I don't know. Just speculating and putting on my tinfoil hat.
You see the UAE. They're like, Buddy goes, I'm gassing the 80 fighter jet order. It's like a 10 million.
I heard that was fake. I saw that was fake.
Oh, it's not real?
No, I think that was a fake one. But it was very realistic looking. Although I don't know. Who knows? Everything is fake until proven otherwise. But yeah, what are we talking about? Yeah, so the encryption stuff.
Yeah.
So eventually, cooler heads prevailed, and encryption was seen as a good thing because it can not only protect bad guys' communications, but it can protect good guys' communications. And anytime that you don't have encryption, then you can't have credit cards on the internet.
Bingo.
And so then this whole entire thing is unable to take off. And so I think eventually people will figure it out. Yes, terrorists can use Bitcoin, but they can also use hammers. They can also use cell phones. They can also use cars.
They can use fiat.
And so they can use dollars. I mean, dollars are the number one mechanism of money laundering and terrorist financing.
Exactly.
And so the narrative has been unfortunately negative on that side of things, but I think it will eventually change. It just has to come from the people where, as you said, 5 million crypto voters, whatever it is, they have to speak to their politicians and say, hey, I am voting this way because you said this or you did this. And so once that happens, I think people who are against crypto, they will get the message and they'll probably change their tone.
I love it. Graeme, we got to talk about your book. And you got to walk me through the story here. I could be wrong, but I think this is the first book you've authored. What, like, are you a dad? Walk through the whole thing there. Were you just like, fuck it, I'm going to make a kid's book. I'm going to write a kid's book. Like, what went on there?
So I'm not a dad, at least hopefully. That would not be good. But so my sister had just had a kid. So I was a new uncle, and I was looking at, getting her some books and reading to her. And I'm looking at, A is for apple, B is for ball. I'm like, okay, like people have been doing this for 100 years. There's got to be something new. And so idea popped in my head, there's no Bitcoin book about this. How is there no A is for altcoins, busts and booms, B is for Bitcoin, when moon? How does that book not exist yet? And so started writing it 2015, sort of got sidetracked, never ended up finishing it. And then 2017 is when eventually I said, okay, I'm going to really, put my mind to this and make sure this book gets out so that people can, instead of reading A is for apple, B is for ball, A is for altcoin, B is for Bitcoin, C is for consensus, D is for decentralized, have a book that I would want to read to my kid, and at least to my niece at the time.
I love that. That's so good. You must have gotten some really cool feedback. Like any stories to tell great. Where, like you some mom or dad read that to the kid. Now the kid's like a 8-year-old launching shit coins on Deck Screener.
I mean, hopefully they're not doing that. I would like them to do something a little more valuable to society. But there is one guy I know. I don't think he'll want me to say his name, but his kid can read the whole book start to finish, like almost eyes closed, pretty much.
Wow!
So they've read it. They've read it that much. There's another guy who works for a pretty important company, and that's the gift he buys everyone when they have a new kid. And so it's been really cool that way. I mean, it's the gift I give to any of my friends now when they have kids. And so they all know as soon as they have one, and they tell me they're getting one in the mail. And so, yeah, it's just been really cool to see how many people are like, oh, this is such a great idea. Thanks for making this. I'm really excited to read it to my kid, because there are so many people, obviously, this, who have that crazy obsession with Bitcoin and with crypto, and they want to share it with their kid. And previously they weren't able to do that, and now they are. So I think it's been really great to see that positive feedback.
I love it. Graeme, you're getting a little tight for time here, but this has been an incredible episode. Before we let you go, you got to plug any projects on the horizon for Polymesh. I know you guys have a bunch of shit popping off. The additional 60 mil real estate assets coming on chain, integration with Alpha Point, the Polymesh Ecosystem Development Fund. Pick and choose what you want to tell us about, but you got to plug some stuff before we let you go.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate it. So that additional 60 million in real estate, so that's also from REtokens that we've been talking about, who tokenized church. And so we're very excited about that. They've already done 30 million to date, I believe. And so, yeah, they're pumping out real estate like crazy, which is very good to see, all on the Polymesh blockchain. Alpha Point, so we just announced that we gave them a grant to integrate the Polymesh blockchain. And so we're recording this August 28th. We announced that yesterday. And so Alpha Point's really cool. If people aren't familiar, they helped the El Salvador government with the Chivo wallet, and helped them get all that stuff set up. They've worked with CME Group. They've worked with a number of other exchanges. I'm sure some people have used an exchange where they had no idea Alpha Point was the actual exchange under the hood that's running the tech.
Interesting.
And so Alpha Point is very excited, like a lot of people are right now, about real world assets. And so they have some customers who came to them and said, hey, we want to tokenize these things. Alpha Point hadn't really been in the RWA space in terms of focusing on it for a few years, because there was sort of this security tokens are the future wave in 2017, 2018, and then sort of died down a little bit. But now it's definitely back, where everybody is excited about that. They see the Biddle Fund, they see Franklin Templeton on chain, they see all these gigantic asset managers. They're going, oh, so maybe real world assets actually make a lot of sense on blockchains. And so Alpha Point wanted to build something. They hadn't touched it. They hadn't touched their own platform since they were built on Ethereum a long time ago. And what they really liked about Polymesh, and that a lot of other folks like, is it's API based, not smart contract based. And so we talked about that a bit, where the assets are built at the base layer. You don't have to build smart contracts on top of it. So a platform like Alpha Point, like REtokens, like Token Tracks, like a lot of these other companies, they're paying APIs to manage assets. They're not necessarily creating their own smart contracts or relying on a third-party smart contracts.
Gotcha.
And that was another issue we had, not only with platforms like Alpha Point and like REtokens, but also banks and custodians, where, let's say a bank wants to use the Ethereum blockchain. Well, they can't only use the Ethereum blockchain. They need to use the Ethereum blockchain plus some random standard from a third-party company. And so we were one of those third-party companies when we built the ERC 1400. There's a number of others who build those as well. But so there are really specific guidelines and requirements for banks, based on their size and based on how important they are in the world's financial system, where specific tech providers have to undergo, certain scrutiny and be a certain amount of reliable, and all these other weird things that, you and I on a day-to-day basis don't really think about, but the banks are constantly thinking about it. And so when you say to a bank, hey, go use this blockchain, and you'll also use this other company and this other company, those are all very, very important to them. And so what's so much easier to get anything done with a bank or with a custodian, they say use the Polymesh blockchain, and the Polymesh blockchain is the only tech you're using.
It's all under one hood.
It's smart contracts
under one hood.
And so that just kind of brings them at ease, whereas previously they're going, oh no, we don't like blockchains because we don't like smart contracts. And then we tell them, no, it's API based. You're paying this one set of tech infrastructure. Yeah, I'd say those are kind of the things we want to plug right now. Anybody else who wants to learn anything more, go to polymesh.network. That's our website. Follow us on Twitter. We're Polymesh Network. X Polymesh Network. You can also reach out to me anytime you want. Ping me on LinkedIn, ping me on X as well.
You got to plug your Twitter. What's your Twitter?
It's at Moore Grams. That was my rap name back in high school. So,
come on, were you a freestyler? White chocolate freestyling?
I mean, a little bit more recorded music than my free game is okay. That's just like something for late nights with the boys. But yeah, we'll leave it there for today.
I love it. Graeme, what an episode. This was a blast. Really appreciate you coming on and can't wait to have you on for round 2. Until then, wishing you and the team all the best, and we will keep in touch, my friend. And next time I'm in New York, we're definitely we're gonna go have a couple. It's got to happen.
Absolutely, we'll have some Labatt Blues or something. There's actually a bar in it's close to where the hockey rink is. It's called the Canuck. It's owned by a Canadian guy, and they've got Canadian flags everywhere. Hockey games always on. So yeah, definitely.
I love it. Graeme, what an episode. Folks, what an episode with Graeme Moore, Head of Tokenization at Polymesh Association. Folks, we covered a little bit of everything. Institutional grade layer unos, public permission, blockchain, the 5 pillars of Polymesh. Of course, tokenizing the old stone church in Colorado. REtokens, money Legos, new liquidity venues, you name it, we touch it. Huge shout out to Graeme and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking to the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything, especially you, Stas. You are the man as always. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.